Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
This episode is brought to you by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. There's plenty to be thankful for. Your friends, family, and the fact that you can now get NFL Sunday Ticket for only $89. So thank yourself this holiday season and watch every game every Sunday when you bundle NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. Sign up now at youtube.com/Sunday Ticket. Offer ends December 2nd. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games. Terms and embargoes apply.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Rated T to M. Hey, want to hear a PC Game Pass ad? I'll take your silence as a yes. Want new games on day one like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 or Stalker 2? I thought so. How about unlocking all the League of Legends champions when you link your Riot Games account? All for one low monthly price? Well, guess what? We got you. Learn more at xbox.com/PC Game Pass or click the banner. Stalker 2 available November 20th, 2024. Game catalog varies by region and over time. And that's the end of the script.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Kelly Green Hour as the Philadelphia Eagles are set to head out west for a matchup on Sunday Night Football with the Los Angeles Rams. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, finally, it feels like the Eagles haven't played in a couple of weeks. It's going to be 10 days between game days, but we get to finally talk another Eagles game.
Yeah, I mean, the mini bye was great for most players. I mean, we're going to dive into one player who it was not so beneficial for and get ready for, I mean, this is a match where there's a few people that are saying the Eagles should be on upset alert. I mean, we're going to see. I think it's going to be a good game. It definitely is one of, I mean, the Commanders was a tough matchup, but it's definitely, you know, we're hitting a chunk of matchups that are going to be tougher than you know, the 4 games prior to that got us on the streak that we're on. So, and it's a return of Sean Desai. What has Sean Desai been able to disseminate upon the Rams that might give them an advantage? If it's anything like we saw last year, probably not much.
Well, we thought the same thing with Brian Johnson last week against the Commanders, and it didn't really help the Commanders all that much against Jalen Hurts. Before we dive deeper into this matchup, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or wherever you listen to your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. And then if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts in the comment section, your predictions of the game, your player or players to watch, and some keys to a victory. At the end of our show, as we do every week, Connor and I will give our predictions. We'll also give our unheralded player of the week from week 11 in the National Football League. So, Connor, first, we're going to start off with this game. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball for the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to be missing DeVonta Smith, who hasn't practiced all week. After the game against Washington last week, was limping off the field, has a hamstring injury. We know that A.J. Brown missed 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. Hopefully, it's not 3 weeks for DeVonta. Now, it's going to be interesting to see who steps up in place of DeVonta. They obviously traded a 3rd-round pick for Jahan Dotson, hoping Dotson would be that guy. And it seems that Hurts has become more comfortable with Jahan Dotson, so maybe he will. Will it be Grant Calcaterra? Will Dallas Goedert get more? Obviously, we're looking at A.J. Brown to step up. Saquon Barkley out the backfield. Britton Covey, who I think was activated or can be activated this week. There's a lot of names. Who do you first your thoughts on DeVonta being out, and then who do you think will step up in DeVonta's absence?
Well, I mean, we know the impact of, AJ Brown being out and his impact on being out on the team. I mean, we have a negative win percentage or when he's not playing. We don't necessarily know so much what life without DeVonta Smith is like, because he's been kind of like an Iron Man. I think he's only missed a couple games in his young career so far.
Missed one this year because of the concussion.
Yeah, he missed one this year. I mean, will he have the same impact as missing AJ Brown? I don't think so, but to the same effect, AJ Brown's going to see a lot more coverage turn his way now, similar to what DeVonta Smith saw when AJ Brown was out of the lineup. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Eagles manage this. You have to expect that Dallas Goedert, who has been stepping up when he's needed to step up in the last couple of weeks since coming back from his injury, you have to expect that Dallas Goedert's going to be a heavy dose of that game plan. You have to anticipate, Saquon Barkley going to continue to be a focal point there. Jahan Dotson, you hope Jahan Dotson's going to step up, but at this point, my expectations are completely tapered with Jahan Dotson. If he can make a couple plays, that's a couple more plays than I had in my book that he was going to make. So, I mean, hopefully he can turn, when Jalen needs to look his way, he's going to be able to trust that Jahan Dotson can make a play. Obviously not to the tune of a DeVonta Smith play, but hopefully he can make some sort of play. But I think the biggest beneficiary and who's going to have the biggest impact on this game is going to be Dallas Goedert. He's going to have to step up in a big way and see what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened in that Saints game when AJ Brown was out. Yeah, he had a huge game, over 150 yards receiving or whatever it was. So it'll be cool if he's able to do that once again. Get his game, just get the ball in the open field and see if he's able to make plays. Looking at the defense for the Rams, if you think about it, I'm assuming he could potentially be lined up against a safety, maybe. Maybe Cameron Curl, maybe Cameron. Oh, they have two Camerons. Cameron Kitchens. You would think that Darius Williams will probably take the load when it comes to AJ Brown. But I feel like the Eagles should, and I always like to put that in quotes, should be able to move the ball on this team through the air. And obviously, we talk about what the Eagles' identity is. They're a running team right now. I think they're top five in the top five, maybe top two in the league in rushing. And Saquon Barkley is number two behind Derrick Henry in rushing yards. And that's how they move the ball. We always talk about why can't they start fast? Well, they want to. I think it's Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts trying to figure out what is going to work against the defense that they're playing. And when it comes to this Rams defense, it's, they have, you mentioned Sean Desai on the staff. I think they have Brandon Staley on the staff too. I forget who their defensive coordinator is. But, they're going to – it's Shula, yep, that's it. They're going to try to be physical with the Eagles. Jarrett Verse, the rookie, this is a battle of the top two rookies for defensive rookie of the year. Jarrett Verse versus Quinyon Mitchell. Now, obviously, they're not facing each other, but we'll see if the Eagles are able to keep Verse off of Jalen Hurts. The one thing the Eagles were able to do during Aaron Donald's career, he had 0 sacks against the Eagles. That was, going up against, Jason Kelsey, going up against whoever was playing right guard, Landon Dickerson, even Mailata and Lane Johnson, because Aaron Donald lined up everywhere. So the Eagles are going to have to come with that game plan again when it comes to the likes of Jarrett Verse, who's having a very, very good year. He's the favorite right now to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And maybe it would be different if Quinyon was able to catch the ball and had 3 or 4 interceptions that he should have. But it's going to be very key for Stoutland in this offensive line to find a way to keep Jarrett Verse off of Hurts and from impacting this game, whether it's from sacks, tackles for loss, or even forcing turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it with the Jared Verse comment. Jared Verse is definitely having a year. Obviously, Quinyon Mitchell. I mean, I think people are starting to see Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean on a similar level as Verse because of just how complete they are, how completely they're shutting down other teams. Wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, whoever they're paired up against, they don't seem to be able to get the ball to them, or don't even seem to want to look that direction. And then, of course, Cooper DeJean's had some game-saving plays. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what they do. I don't think Jared Verse would necessarily be on the same level as Aaron Donald yet in his career. And Verse is definitely more of like that outside edge type player who's definitely going to more often than not probably be matched up against one of our two tackles who, I mean, there's a stat out that's been floating around out there this week about how they're two absolute best when left on an island of all tackles across the NFL. When they're left on an island and the pressure that they allow, it's almost non-existent. It's actually really impressive. What Mailata and Lane Johnson, and we're going to look back on these guys and look back on their careers and see what they were capable of doing, especially, Lane Johnson, future Hall of Famer for sure. It's crazy to see what they're capable of doing. So, I mean, from back to from the defensive standpoint for the Rams, I mean, they're pretty average defense, and I know that the Rams are one of those teams. The NFC West seems like the one that's been bitten by the injury bug, the worst of any division. I mean, look at this 49ers this week. They're going to be without Nick Bosa and Brock Purdy. Obviously, that's massive to add to the laundry list of injuries that they've been dealing with all year. We know the Rams dealt with some injuries early on offensively, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. So, the offense is starting to hit its stride a bit more now that they're all healthy and playing together. But their defense hasn't been hit by the injury bug as badly, a couple here and there, but they're really average at best. Like, they rank 22nd against the pass. They rank 18th against the rush. I think the Eagles, I mean, this would have been a really good game to be able to deploy DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown. I think A.J. Brown can definitely still have a big game against this secondary, but it is unfortunate that, he's going to see a little more help over top and a little more coverage than we would have expected if DeVonta Smith was out there. And I was looking at it, they are giving up the 8th most yards against tight ends as well. So that's something to watch because, Dallas Goedert, like I was saying, is a player to watch. I think he's a guy who can definitely go off and have another big game, go for at least 100 plus yards again. Like you said, we saw the impact he had when A.J. Brown was down. He's going to have a similar impact when DeVonta Smith being down. And we've seen Dallas Goedert be able to step up in those spots. If it wasn't for Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, and DeVonta Smith, we would see a lot more Dallas Goedert. If one of those people are not in the equation, Dallas Goedert will be one of the top tight ends in the NFL. I can almost guarantee it. Unfortunately, we only see him when we need to see him. And the good thing is he's very, very capable when he does have to step up in those spots. But overall, what scares me the most is more the Rams' offensive side of the ball than the defensive side of the ball, because the defense is kind of average at it. If they had Verse and Donald, I think it would be such a different conversation that we'd be having if Donald stuck around for another year or two and was paired with Jared Verse along that defensive line. But unfortunately, we're not talking in that way. And to me, I think that, once the Eagles figure out what works against this Rams defense, which I think it could be both things, I think they can have a pretty balanced approach to this game. They should be able to put some points up against this Rams defense.
Yeah, remember last year's game in which the Eagles won. Hurts had a touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert. At the end of the first half, he had that pass to A.J. Brown, which he caught it one-handed to get them in the field goal range before the half. And the Eagles were able to come away with the win. You were talking about the Rams offense. Cooper Kupp came back from injury that week, had over 100 yards receiving. But let's talk about that Rams offense. This is going to be a big test for both Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, as you were talking about it. First off, do you think that having two highly rated defensive rookies that are in the starting lineup in Mitchell and DeJean, they'll kind of cancel each other out in terms of votes, and that makes it easier to vote for Jared Verse. Like when you look at the Eagles, like you're going to vote for one or the other when it comes to Mitchell or DeJean. And, usually it's like one standout rookie, but it's not like that with the Eagles. I do think that, the votes will kind of cancel each other out, and that's going to leave somebody like Jared Verse up there, being able to win the award because you have two on one team.
Yeah, you definitely could have that argument there because there is a world where there's people who are going to think that Cooper DeJean was better because of the game saving plays that he made. And then you're going to have people who are like, well, Kenyon Mitchell didn't get the chance to have those game-saving plays, although he has dropped at least an interception.
They really avoid his side of the field.
But Kenyon Mitchell hasn't had that opportunity because, exactly. They completely avoid his side of the field. So how is he supposed to have that opportunity to do what Cooper DeJean does? Because Cooper DeJean also works a area of the field that's far more active and conducive of making plays, like stopping a running back, stopping a quarterback, making a play behind the line of scrimmage. Kenyon Mitchell is not often behind the line of scrimmage or near the line of scrimmage. He's dealing with a wide receiver down the field. I mean, if I was left in that position, like let's talk a hypothetical, to me it would be Kenyon Mitchell because Kenyon Mitchell has played the full season. He was able to get the full season in so far. If Cooper DeJean played all the games, I think he might be ahead of Kenyon Mitchell only because it's an award where you kind of have to count stats in a way. Having a pure shutdown cornerback in their first season may not be conducive of winning that defensive rookie of the year, unfortunately. But if Kenyon Mitchell can make a couple plays, a couple interceptions, I think that's all it will take to jump over Jared Verse.
Yeah, so this will be a big game. And if the Eagles can keep Jared Verse, like I mentioned, Jared Verse out the backfield off of Hurts and kind of keep him invisible, so to speak, that would do wonders for Quinyon Mitchell's role in becoming the defensive rookie of the year. And in terms of, Cooper DeJean, I mean, he's going to have a battle. Cooper Kupp likes to line up all over the field. He lines up in the slot. Puka Nacua will line up in the slot. And this is the best quarterback that the Eagles have. I mean, they face Joe Burrow. But when it comes to the weapons that the quarterback has, this is the best set of weapons because if you think about it, the Bengals only had Jamar Chase as T. Higgins didn't play. Kyron Williams is very good at the running back position. I think he's scored in almost every game this year, except maybe one or two. Demarcus Robinson is also a really good third receiver. I think the weakness for this offense of the Rams is their offensive line. Jalen Carter is going to have to be a disruptive force, which he's been for the most part this year, and he's going to have to be a bully and not allow, Stafford to sit in a clean pocket all day, not allow Kyron Williams to run. Now it's not just Jalen Carter, but he's the main cog in that in the defensive line for the Eagles. He's going to have to make some noise. He's going to have to be disruptive, and I think he's going to be able to do that against this offensive line that's not very good for the Rams.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we know like if guys like Matt Stafford feed on being able to get the ball out quick and feed on the opportunity to take advantage of a defense that's going to give him that time. And of course, the Eagles are one of those defenses who sometimes gives that time because, the defensive line isn't always getting home, isn't always getting the pressure that we want to see. But you definitely hit on the Rams. They're just kind of like everything about the Rams is kind of average. Like to me, and I mean, speaking from, from an Eagles fandom perspective and stuff, it's they just aren't a team. Like they're lucky they're in the division that they're in where, Seahawks are average at best too. Rams average at best. Arizona Cardinals are leading the division right now, which is super wild to think about, but shouldn't be. And then the 49ers just can't fight off this injury bug long enough to string together a couple games that can get them ahead in that division. So to me, really, they're a team that's going to give a lot of teams a good matchup, a good run, but they're not a team that I would worry about, come playoff time and being able to put together that all-important game. So I feel like, they're average at best, and this defense should be able to continue to take advantage of another of this offensive line and get some pressure. And I know that, right out of the bye, we started getting a ton of pressure. And since then, it's tapered off. We get a couple sacks a game, which is still good. But you want to be able to get pressure on a guy like Matthew Stafford. He's been in the league long enough. He'll take what's there for him. He doesn't need to get fancy. He doesn't need to do anything above and beyond. He's got weapons who can do stuff after the catch for him. Kyron Williams, he can work out of the backfield as a receiver. He can also work as just a pure running back. But like you said, he's got 10 touchdowns on the year, 8 as a rusher, 2 as a receiver. So, I mean, the guy's fully capable of doing anything he needs to. I mean, from a tight end perspective, not a whole lot to worry about from a tight end perspective. It's basically been the Colby Parkinson show, and he's got 233 yards on the year and 1 touchdown. So, I mean, there's nothing crazy from that perspective that the Eagles have to worry about, which could free up a guy like Nakobe Dean or Zach Bond periodically to bring a little added pressure up against Matthew Stafford. But, of course, like you said, there are still the weapons out there. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Tutu Atwell even. Like, if you're focused on other people, maybe Tutu Atwell, he's been capable in the games where Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua have missed of doing some things and helping out that offense. So, but ultimately, to me, they're an average at best team, and that this Eagles team, this Eagles team is who we think they are, and is the team that they've looked like over the last 6 weeks, especially last week coming off a big win against, a division rival, the best team that they've played in that stretch of 6 games. This is a matchup that, they need to win, and they should be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, let's hope, because, a lot of people are calling this what could be a trap game just because of the big battle next week against the Baltimore Ravens. Having to travel all the way across country this week, come back home, then have to go to Baltimore. But as has been mentioned a couple of times on this show, or throughout the last couple of weeks, this is the last time the Eagles are going to have to get on a plane until the playoffs. Depending on if they're flying to Detroit or if potentially flying to New Orleans, because you take the train to Baltimore, you take the train to DC, you take the they're the only two after this, the only 2 road games, because you have Carolina at home, the Steelers at home, Dallas and the Giants at home. Like, the Eagles' back end schedule in terms of travel is very, very, very friendly to them. So hopefully they're not looking past that. And I don't think they are. Obviously, we remember what happened last year when the Eagles started 10-1. They're almost at that point. They don't want to have that happen again. We don't want to conjure up bad memories. Maybe it helps that Washington's on their tail, and with what happened last year, the Eagles aren't going to want to do it again. They also have better coordinators, I think, obviously, than last year, especially at defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. And again, I was wrong. I called him cooked earlier in the year. He has definitely proven me wrong. It just took some time, and he got this defense believing, flying around, being physical. And they're having fun again. Like, you see it all the time. You see them out there. They're all cheering for each other. Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean talk about how, like, they always talk about turnovers, and every time they have a turnover, they keep it in the linebacker room. They'll keep the ball in the linebacker room. They're rooting for each other. They want to one-up each other. Having CJ GJ here, he brings that physical force back. Darius Slay, he was bothered by something last year because he definitely looks a lot better this year. While he is considered the number 1 corner on this team, Quinyon Mitchell, man, he has made a huge difference. We talk about it. He takes the one side of the field away. And, he did it against Terry McLaurin last week. He went up against him 20 times and didn't allow any catches. He's done it all season against some good receivers. He's going to go, and we mentioned it a lot today, he's going to be going up against a couple of really good receivers and a quarterback that's not scared to throw the football. He is going to throw it to you. you got to take advantage of that. We'll see if he's able to get his first interception this year if Stafford decides to throw him the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Stafford does have 7 interceptions on the season, which is definitely not a small number by any means. And that could definitely play. I mean, we talk about it. I think this is a topic that's literally come up every single episode is when can Kenyon Mitchell get that first interception? When can he? Because it feels like, he feels like one of those guys that once it happens once, it's going to start this ripple effect and he's going to end the season with almost like you almost have this feeling of like he might go off for almost an interception a game the rest of the way. He just needs to get his hands on that ball that one time, and it can be an absolute game changer. And like the Los Angeles Rams, they like to throw the football. They rank 7th in passing attempts, 24th in rushing attempts. They like to, while they have a good weapon in Kyren Williams, the Eagles also are one of the number 1 rushing defenses. So they could be one of those teams that kind of, like we don't like to see from the Eagles, that kind of abandons the run when things get tough, especially if the Eagles can start scoring points. I mean, when you think about it, the LA Rams rank 8th in drives that end, their defense ranks 8th worst in drives that end in a score. They've allowed a score on 43.8% of offensive drives. That's a massive number. Almost 1 in 2 per game of the offensive drives end in points. It is vital that the Eagles get points and get points early, because I think if you start making Matthew Stafford throw the ball more and more, it's gonna lead to turnovers. It's gonna lead to interceptions. It's gonna lead to mistakes. And this is a defense that we've seen it through the past 6 weeks. They were a team that had like no turnovers heading into the bye week, and they're thriving off of turnovers. And it shows how vitally important these turnovers have become for the offense in general as well. The offense has to work a lot less harder when you're being gifted field position from turnovers like the defense has been able to do.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I wanted to say something, but I can't. And we always talk about how the Eagles start slow. There's only one team that's worse at scoring early than the Eagles, and it's the Rams. So it wouldn't shock me if this is a 3-0, 0-0 game after the first quarter, and then we start seeing fireworks as we get into the second half. But if the Eagles are able to start fast, let's be honest, there is no fan base in LA. There's going to be probably more Eagles fans than Rams fans in that stadium. I think I saw something that like of the tickets that are being bought up, 52% are from Eagles fans, which is amazing because this isn't a close game. Like you have to go across country. And it's going to be the same the next night. It's the Ravens against the Chargers in the Harbaugh Bowl. It wouldn't shock me if there's more Raven fans there than Charger fans. So like you won't have to worry about that stadium getting loud and being against you just because Ram fans don't exist. Let's be honest. Have you ever met a Rams fan? Because I know one. I think only one.
Forcing that beautiful stadium into LA is just doing such an injustice.
Shouldn't have took the Rams out of St. Louis or the Chargers out of San Diego. Let's be honest.
No, it wasn't like you were staring down like an Oakland A's type situation where there's just no support from fans. There's just no support from anybody. Like the Oakland A's were known for having like 1,000 fans in the stadium that holds like 40,000 people. Like it's not like that.
That's an ownership. That's an ownership problem. That was
an ownership problem.
That wasn't really because when in Billy Bean's early years, the Oakland A's, like they were thriving. It's more of an ownership fault. But crabby old man, I'm insulted now. I don't know a single Rams fan. See, there's going to be more Eagles. Look, LA this weekend is going to be filled with Eagles and Ravens fans because that's it's going to be you're going to see a bunch of green and you're going to see a bunch of purple in that area because that's who the LA teams face this week. Sunday Night Football is going to be all about the Eagles. Eagles fans taking over, and then Monday Night Football is going to be about the Ravens fans taking over. He also says, I get all kinds of love wearing my Eagles bling. See? Like, Eagles fans are everywhere. Let's be real. Eagles fans, are you going to the game? Because that would be pretty cool.
It definitely would be.
I know lots of Cowboys fans, but they're all hiding. Of course they are. Of course they are. And we love when the cockroaches go back hide in their holes. Do you think Dallas is going to sign Daniel Jones? He got cut. He got released by the Giants today. I'm going a little off topic here, but
I don't know. Like, I mean, there's
is he better than Cooper Rush is the question.
I mean, I think he's better than Cooper. I mean, I think he's better than the quarterbacks they have on roster, and one of them is Trey Lance, a former, first round pick. So,
wasn't he like a top 5 pick?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Daniel Jones is going to rush this decision necessarily. So I don't know if he's going to come in and be the savior for anybody. Not that anyone's saving the Dallas Cowboys season anyways, but
he's not a savior when it comes to
he's definitely not a savior. I mean, I think he needs to go to where a very friendly offense where
San Francisco?
Like San Fran. Yeah, that's where I'm thinking. Like somewheres where you have a good coach who can develop you, because I think he just was thrown into the fire in New York and never ended up being given somebody who was overly supportive of him and his development and get him better at the game. So I don't think he ends up in Dallas, but I think he's going to be a bit more choosy. Like, I don't think he's going to end up clearing waivers tomorrow, because obviously no one's going to claim him off waivers because they have to eat the contract. But I mean, so obviously, he's going to clear waivers. He's probably not going to sign at 401 tomorrow or anything like that. It's not going to be anything crazy like that. But I'll be intrigued to see where he goes, because I think he's going to go where he thinks he might have an opportunity to play next year or in a coming year or two.
Is he better than Kenny Pickett? And would you sign him if you were Howie Roseman to be the backup?
I mean, we've seen Daniel Jones be able to put up points and put up yards in a rare pinched situation. Kenny Pickett has never been able to put up points or yards or do anything offensively. So, I mean, I still think, if I'm really picking between those two plus, our emergency third QB, Tanner McKee, I'm more comfortable with Tanner McKee than either Pickett or Jones.
True. I know I threw a curveball at you there. I don't know why I'm thinking of that, but I just thought that was fun. Like, there was no way. It would be funny if he went to Dallas and he started Thanksgiving Day against the Giants, though. I think that would be hilarious. Transitioning back to the game. Sadly, you're not going to. That would have been a really cool experience. The Eagles play in LA next year, I think. I would love to play the Chargers in LA next year. I would love to be able to go out there next year to see the Eagles and Chargers if I can make that at all possible. Trying to make one road game a year. I went to Dallas last year, going to Baltimore this year. We'll see what game I can make it to next year. But I think that would be a lot of fun. Where were we? I don't even remember. We'll see what the Eagles defense is able to do. If they can stop Kyron Williams and force the Rams to throw, which, like you said, they like to throw the football. You're not going to be able to stop Cooper Kupp. You're not going to be able to stop Puka Nacua. You just have to contain them. Don't let them go for big gains. And the one thing that the Eagles have done a very, very good job of this year, especially since Cooper DeJean has been inserted into the starting lineup, is tackle. If they catch the ball on like a short pass, let it be a short pass. Don't let them break a tackle and make it what should be a 5-yard gain into a 15, 20, 30-yard gain. And that's going to be the key to this game for the Eagles defense, is keeping the big plays to a minimum, which they have done really well for the most part during this, especially during this 6-game winning streak.
Focus on the fundamentals. It's what's been working out and been so successful for you. Just a nice wrap and tackle. I mean, CJ Gardner-Johnson's one of those guys who is averaging at the bye week 2 missed tackles, or if not more, per game. And he hasn't had, I think I saw a stat, he hasn't had a missed tackle since the bye week. Like, it's all about the fundamentals. Like, they need to make those tackles. Cooper DeJean is a perfect example. Make those hits at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage, and don't let them go anywhere.
I think I saw a stat that the Eagles have the second least amount of missed tackles on the season.
Which is crazy, because they were probably on pace to have the most missed tackles out during week 4 by the time the bye week came around, because they were in a world of trouble.
Who would have thunk that just taking Avonte Maddox off the field and the defense got better? Who would have thought it?
It wasn't like, I mean, I hate to give, credit to, some portions of this media and fan base, but it's not like everybody was saying to get him off the field. Maybe. I mean,
DeJean did get hurt, so that kind of hurt.
DeJean, exactly. They were kind of moving DeJean into it slowly. I don't think they wanted to force him or rush him into anything. So, I mean, maybe it's a good thing. I mean, at least, if there was this drive to see if Avonte Maddox could work, at least you got it out of the way early and realized this guy deserves no more than 5 snaps a game. And
he had one snap against who, and he had a pass interference. Was that the Jaguars?
I think it was it was the Jaguars.
One snap and he got a PI.
Close. Exactly. That's the thing. Like, don't have him out there. Like, if you have to put him out there when it's a big lead, or put him out there not in a pressure, situation where you should have your top guys out there, like that Jags game. That situation was your top 12 defensive players had to be, if they were healthy, had to be on that field in that position. So I guess, one thing we can take from all of this is the lesson learned that Avonte Maddox is not to ever be used. And we learned it quickly and we learned it early, because imagine if they're still trying to make it work and he's showing them a little bit of something, enough of something to keep him in the lineup. Imagine what could happen come crunch time. If he's shown just enough to stay in the lineup, he might have lost us games, blown us games when it came to crunch time.
The league showed what they thought about him when the Eagles cut him, and he got one visit to the Saints, I think, and nobody signed him, and he just came back. And so I think that this is it for him. This will be his last year here, because with the way DeJean's playing, Isaiah Rodgers will probably be back. You have Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, who they like a lot. Like, this is a young and talented secondary. We talked about what you would do with Darius Slay. I kind of would bring him back, but not in a starter's role, because I love his leadership, and the guys love him on the team. There's a reason he's a captain. He calls Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean his kids. Like, they love Darius Slay on this team. There's all different type of leaders on this team. You have Jalen, who's the quiet leader. He kind of just shows it the way he plays it. Saquon's another leader on the team. Like, even though it's his first year, excuse me, he's going to wear the C next year. I'm almost positive he's going to have a C next year. He does all his talking out on the field. And he, as great of a player as he is, and kind of the pedigree he had coming in, like, he was humble coming into the locker room, and he earned the respect from his new teammates, and he shows it out on the field every day. Darius Slay is the talkative one, but there's nothing wrong with being talkative. Do we like when he goes on the podcast with Micah Parsons? No, but he's always there for his teammates, and you like that. Again, Coach Sirianni talks about all the time. There's a reason why he's been a captain the last 3 years. Just like the way he supports his teammates and whatnot. So there's a bunch of different type of leaders, and and that's what you want. You don't want to have all the same type of leader, because kind of like the message will run dry. When you have different type of leaders, somebody's outgoing, somebody is, I'm going to show you, I'm going to be a leader by my actions. You like that. And then there's a reason why this team plays for Nick Sirianni. They love Nick Sirianni. We all see a different type when it comes to the media. Behind closed doors, like, he listens to the players. He'll take open criticism from the players, and he doesn't allow that to affect him. And that's why this team plays so well for him.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, and they were talking about it in reference to George Pickens today on ESPN, but it kind of, the point that you made kind of rings true, and I never agree with Cam Newton. I'll preface a statement by saying that, but Cam Newton made the point that, you can't have a team full of George Pickens. We could not have a team full of Quinyon Mitchells or a team full of Darius Slays.
I would like to have a team full of Quinyon Mitchells. He's good.
Like, well, okay, from a skill standpoint, but from like the point was from the personality standpoint. You can't have a completely silent
I don't think
team.
we know what Quinyon Mitchell's personality is, because he's a rookie. Rookies don't tend to come out like their full self, if that makes sense, the first year.
True.
I think next year and beyond, we are going to learn more about Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah, but we know at the same point, like, we would never be able to deal with a team full of Darius Slays. And like, if all these guys were going on all these other guys' podcasts talking about their team or talking about we wouldn't be able to handle it. Our media would absolutely despise it because they're like, why aren't they talking to me? But we know why they don't want to talk to that Philly media. But that's another story. But it's just the way that you said it. They made the reference that you need a team that is full of different personalities, different types of players. And that rings true to even the types of leaders that you have. There's some that are the strong silent type, and there's some that are the strong outgoing type, and their personality shines through. We saw with Darius Slay, when we look Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox was more of the strong silent type. Like you saw him, but like maybe he was overshadowed by guys like Darius Slay and Jason Kelce, who were a lot more outspoken and stuff. But you knew that you always know Brandon Graham's like a silent leader. Like you don't hear much, but you know that he's there. And
no, we hear much from Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham's a talker.
He's a talker, but I mean, not to the level of like, I don't think he's on the level of like Jason Kelce or Darius Slay. Like, I think he's like, he likes to talk when he wants to talk. Kelce and Slay like to talk all the time, anytime. So, I mean, it's good to have those different personalities, like you said, and hopefully, we start to see Cooper DeJean come out. We're going to start to see, Kenyon Mitchell's personality come out. And as we usher out the Darius Slays of the world, hopefully their personality shine through in a way that they can wear the C, that they can become leaders and do great things in this locker room, because we know that there's a lot of really, really good young players on this team. Over the past couple of years, we've had some episodes where we've been so concerned heading into off seasons and what is Howie going to do? Is he going to bring all the old guys back and mess with the draft, or is he going to hit on the draft and start to move on from some of these guys? And thankfully, guys like Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce, who garnered interest from around the league, said, you know what? They walked away on their own accord. They didn't want to do any more damage to their bodies. They were prepared to move on. And it feels like, the Eagles have that, that way with their players where they're able to understand when things are coming. That's why we were preparing for life after Jason Kelce for a couple of years, because Jason Kelce was kind of giving Howie Roseman the heads up. Hey, man, I feel my end is coming. I feel it's time to walk away soon. So I feel like, hopefully like a Darius Slay and some of those other guys, Brandon Graham, some of those guys who are getting old. Brandon Graham, I mean, like you said, if we do really well again this year, he may want to come back again, because as long as he's healthy
the best defensive
and they're having fun.
Best defensive end we have right now.
Definitely. And as long as he's healthy and having fun, what's the point in retiring and calling it a career if your body's still saying I can do it?
Well, family.
So it'll be interesting to see, but it feels like, there's going to be some guys who are going to have to step into that role. Jalen Carter is going to be one of those guys.
I think another guy on the offensive side, Landon Dickerson has really stepped up too. Like, he's been breaking huddles down, and he's got passion. The Eagles, I think, put out a video of him when they played the Cowboys and what he was taught when he kind of broke down the lineman huddle. He's somebody Mailata has to see. Johnson obviously has to see. And you were talking about how, like, going into off seasons, we always talk about how he's going to do. Well, on the offensive side of the ball, 10 of the 11 starters are going to be here next year. The only one that's not signed for next year is Mekhi Becton, the starting right guard. So, like, there's going to be consistency there. Obviously, the big question mark is going to be Kellen Moore. If Kellen Moore comes back and you have Jalen Hurts in the second season in this offense, we saw what happened when in 2022, the second year with Steichen calling plays, they went to the Super Bowl. If he's able to get Kellen Moore to come back, if Kellen Moore doesn't go and get a head coaching position somewhere, that's going to be huge for this offense, and even bigger for Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts, we always say, like, he maybe one time since high school, he's had the same offensive coordinator back-to-back years. And that was going from it was Shane Steichen going from 2021 to 2022. So that is going to be huge for him. And, it took some time for Hurts and Kellen Moore to kind of figure out figure each other out, what they like to do, and what they feel comfortable with. And it seems like that's what they're doing. They know that the identity of the team, they're a running team. And Hurts has the ability, to make plays. Now, against Washington, he had a couple of bad misses. Maybe it was an ankle. He was on the injury report this week with an ankle injury. That one pass to A.J. Brown on the sideline, he was nowhere near him. Like, you don't miss that play to A.J. Brown.
I feel like, in a way, the Eagles had to disclose a little something after the slip-up. They don't want the NFL coming after them for falsifying injury reports or hiding injuries or any of that jazz.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
Every day when you log into ChumbaCasino.com, the ultimate online social casino, you get a free daily bonus. Imagine if you got daily bonuses in other parts of your life.
I chose French fries over loaded French fries.
I asked Stuart from accounting about his weekend, even though I don't care.
I updated my operating system without having to call tech support.
Collect your free daily bonus at ChumbaCasino.com now. And live the Chumba life.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
And then on the defensive side of the ball, Zach Bond's not signed. We'll see if they bring him back. But like and BG, but BG's not, and Josh Sweat. Like, I think 7 or 8 starters are signed for next year. So again,
but even when you look at the defensive side of the ball, like, you sit there and you're like, okay, but what has Sweat done for us today? What has Milton Williams done for us today? And you have to figure out, like, eventually some of these guys are going to have to go because you're not going to be able to keep everybody in-house. And you sit there and you're like, Josh Sweat went in, Milton Williams went in. This was a money-making season for them. Somebody's going to pay them, but are the Eagles going to be the ones that want to dole out the money if they don't start to show something down the backstretch of this season? Sweat, like, what is one of those frustrating players when he makes plays, he makes them in piles. You have those games where he has 3 sacks, and then he'll go 8 games without even getting, he might get pressures, but then he goes 8 games without even getting a sack. And there's a difference between, Jalen Carter isn't stuffing the stat sheet, but all you got to do is turn on a game and Jalen Carter's there because he is in that backfield making plays every week. Josh Sweat, while, PFF and some other sites have him getting his boatload of pressures, I don't necessarily sit there and say, wow, look at Josh Sweat every single game. I can go a whole game and say, hey, what happened with Josh Sweat? Where's Josh Sweat? So it'll be interesting to see how he does because, we're at a point now where some of these guys, it's like we could probably move on from them and find replaceable pieces to fill those voids. But it'll be interesting to see because we know when Howie needs to replace like key starters, we could end up like a la Bryce Huff situation. Or, we've seen how he...
It wouldn't shock me if they tried to trade Bryce Huff this offseason. Nolan Smith has started to turn it on the last couple of weeks. And maybe in the draft, they draft another Georgia defensive lineman and we can have a Georgia defensive line heading into next year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, and I know Jalix Hunt started the week on the injury report, but then he got some practice in at the end of the week. I'm actually excited to see more of Jalix Hunt, and I hope, he gets, the Bryce Huff touches or snaps and some, because the Bryce Huff snaps were, 10 to 15 a game. I would like to see, at this point, well, what else do you have? You can't have Brandon Graham go for 100% of snaps. Josh Sweat, you got to, if there's one thing we've learned with the Eagles, it's good to have a heavy rotation at defensive line, have some fresh legs trying to create pressure, because sometimes that can become an advantage up against, offensive linemen who've been out there for 100% of snaps, who have been playing the whole game. So hopefully, Jalix Hunt starts to see, 30%, 40%, 50% of snaps, and we start to see, can Bryce Huff become expendable? Can we move on from Josh Sweat and draft an edge in the draft? Like, some things to look forward to. I know we've gotten away from the game, but some things to definitely, be kind of intrigue you as the season rolls on and to watch.
Doesn't matter if they bring somebody back or not, they're going to draft an edge. Like, it's 1,000% guarantee that they're going to draft.
Because at this point, if you bring Josh Sweat back, I don't think Howie goes out and signs him for 3 or 4 years. I think it's like,
it's a 1-year deal.
Like 1-year deal.
They'll let him go test the market, and he'll say, "Hey, come back, let me know what you're getting." And if Howie sees what he's being offered, and then he doesn't like it, let him go. Like, he's not going to sign him to a long-term deal.
No.
All right. So before we get to our players of the game, keys to the game, and our prediction, let's get to our unheralded player of the week for Week 11 in the National Football League. We don't want the Saquons, the Josh Allens of the world. We want somebody that kind of under the radar. So who is your unheralded player of the week for Week 11?
Oh, I went way off here. I am taking Carl Brooks for the Green Bay Packers, the man responsible for the blocked field goal that gave the Green Bay Packers the win over the dysfunctional, if we can call it that, Chicago Bears. It's rare. It's rare. I'm gonna pick a guy who has 2 tackles in a game. I think that was the length of his statistical output. But I mean, the Green Bay Packers, since Jordan Love has come back from injury, Jordan Love is tied for the lead in interceptions. They haven't been the cleanest football team. They've been pretty messy. They're at 7-3 right now, so they've gotten to I really like the Green Bay Packers. I had them as going to the Super Bowl, trying not to be a homer with the Eagles. And, after last season with the Eagles, I wasn't prepared to necessarily say, they're going to the Super Bowl. But, the Green Bay Packers, they got to start winning a bit cleaner, and they got to start making things look a little less ugly. But Carl Brooks came through in a big spot with that blocking. You don't see blocked field goals all that often anymore. And I know, Chicago was going to complain to the league.
It's happened in back-to-back weeks.
Yeah, and I know that they were going to complain, and they're like, "Oh, we feel we were wronged." I mean, whatever. How often is the league going to make you go back and play that one play over again, or any point of a game over again? It's just not going to happen. So I'm going with Carl Brooks. I mean, that's huge for the Green Bay Packers, moving to 7-3. They haven't been winning in the nicest of ways, and Jordan Love hasn't been making life easy. But when you can get a win with a play like that from special teams, when you don't see that happening so much with special teams, you gotta love it. Plus, I'll never get to use him again because I don't think he'll ever be that useful.
That Eagles win over the Packers Week 1, we're looking better and better every week. I'm going to go with Josh Downs of the Indianapolis Colts. He had 5 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown to help the Colts defeat the Jets just end the season Jets 28-27.
What a mess, the Jets. Oh,
the Jets stink. Aaron Rodgers is cooked.
I know that when we were in our preseason episode talking, and we were making our predictions, you laughed that I even had the Jets in the playoffs. I thought the Jets would, just squeeze into the playoffs, but they have fired their coach. They have fired their manager. And every report that comes out about Aaron Rodgers seems to be pointing towards the exit door at the end of the season.
I had the Jets finishing 7-10, and I might have been high.
Yeah, I think I had. I don't know what I had the record at. I knew in theory I had them at 500, like 9-8, maybe 10-7, and obviously they're not getting there. But that is another owner that you just, if you're in the AFC East, you just must love it. It's just like us with the Cowboys, to have such a vocal owner, and like that report that came out from The Athletic. And everything, Woody Johnson has his hands all over everything that happens in that organization. Like, you must hate being a Jets fan. It must just be absolutely infuriating to be a Jets fan. They were talking about it on ESPN, and they were like, the Jets, since Woody Johnson took over, has done nothing. At least with Jerry Jones, he's got some deep playoff runs, some Super Bowls to his name, but the Jets are just... It's a world of hurt. And now you're starting over again.
I don't know who's going to want that. That's not a situation I would want to go to. Like, I'd rather go to Jacksonville after Doug Peterson gets fired. At least, I mean, Trevor Lawrence is great, but like they have weapons there. He's a young quarterback. I mean, I don't know what other spots are going to be open, but there are other jobs that are going to be more
appealing for
appealing.
sure.
Yeah, good word. Thank you. I couldn't think of that. More appealing than the Jets. Jets would be the last place. I mean, even though Rex Ryan is out there, clamoring for the job, but Rex Ryan wasn't that great of a coach either. All right. Let's jump to our players of the game, keys to the game, and predictions. So who are your players of the game for the Eagles-Rams Sunday Night Football matchup this week?
I mean, I guess I kind of gave it away earlier with the offense. I'm going Dallas Goedert. That's my player of the game. That's the guy to watch. I'm not saying A.J. Brown's not going to have himself a game. I just think A.J. Brown's going to have to fight to have himself a game because there's going to be a lot more attention on him. And when attention shifts that way, A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley are the clear guys that are going to have the extra added attention. Dallas Goedert seems to be periodically that afterthought that when there's injuries or there's players missing, he comes through and gives you that big game in a big spot. And it doesn't have to be often. If he's called upon 2 or 3 times a year, he'll go and give you that game 2 or 3 times a year. You can trust him and you can have faith in him. So Dallas Goedert offensively, and on the offensive side of the ball, the key to the game for me is put up points early and get out to that early lead. We've seen in games how vitally important that is because it's helped the defense so much because you're putting the other offense on their heels. You're making them go into the playbook and pick plays and make decisions that they may not necessarily have wanted to go to, but they have to go to move the ball down the field. And when those teams make those decisions, especially, you look at Matthew Stafford, 7 interceptions. That's not a ton, but it's not something to just say, oh, that's no big issue. He can still throw interceptions. He can still make his mistakes. As much respect as I have for Matthew Stafford. So you want to make sure you give your defense, serve it up to the defense on a silver platter a little bit there and give them an opportunity to be what they've been over the last 6 weeks. Defensively, I'm going to go with Jalen Carter. It feels like, the easy pick, but this is a guy who I think I saw a stat per Next Gen Stats. He is the only defensive tackle with multiple pressures in every game this season, which is crazy to think because it has not necessarily translated into sacks, but he has been such an important part of generating turnovers, generating sacks for other players, generating opportunities for other defensive players. He is helping everybody around him, if even not helping himself, because he's eating double teams, he's eating triple teams, he's causing people to have to turn their attention and constantly have their focus on this guy, whereas that may not necessarily be the truth with like Jordan Davis or somebody. So I'm going Jalen Carter because ultimately he might end up helping Milton Williams have a game, Nolan Smith have a game, Josh Sweat have a game. He may ultimately end up helping, and we obviously know he's going to ultimately help the defense as a total whole package. And defensively, my key to the game, I mean, it's stop the two wide receivers. That wide receiver tandem, if you can shut them down, we know our run defense is pretty good. I'm not that worried about Kyren Williams. I think that our run defense can manage against Kyren Williams. What I worry about is when you put the ball to the air so many times, as good as Kenyon Mitchell has been, as good as Darius Slay has been, we might have had a good preview of what this matchup would look like if T. Higgins and Jamar Chase were both healthy a few weeks ago in Cincy. They were not. Now we get to see a real, one of the top 5 wide receiver duos, tandems in the league. And now we get to see, can this secondary really stand their ground and really force some turnovers, force some, be ball hawks, make some pass breakups, make some big decisions, make some of those key plays that we know we've seen them make. But, up against Washington, shutting down Terry McLaurin becomes a bit of an easier task when who's the second option? Not necessarily as out there and flashing bright lights as we see with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua.
Yeah, definitely. So my offensive player to watch is going to be Jordan Mailata going up against Jared Verse. We've talked about how Jared Verse is the right now the odds-on favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. Well, and you had mentioned how Mailata and Lane Johnson are, the two highest when, being on an island and pretty much dominating on the island. So they're going to have to continue that. So Eagles are going to need Jordan Mailata to have a big game to keep Verse off of Hurts and to allow Hurts to hopefully, hit A.J. Brown, Jahan Dotson, Grant Calcaterra, Dallas Goedert down the field, and hopefully let's get the screen game going, because we know how dangerous Saquon can be with the ball in his hands. And the big key is going to be protecting the football and keeping Hurts clean. You don't want to give a team that you're favored over, keep them, especially at home, even though it's going to sound like an Eagles game at the Link. Keep them in it. If you can jump out to a big lead, like you mentioned, kind of, they might, I don't want to say they'll quit, but like they might just, take their foot off the pedal.
Before you move on, that get the screen game going, you should preface it by specifying the players. We don't want Jahan Dotson in the.
That's why I said Saquon.
Saquon
or Britton
Goddard or AJ Brown, the guys who can produce with their legs. Yes, Jahan Dotson. Don't need that. Or Britton Covey. Yeah, no. If he's back, we don't need that.
I was going to go Jalen Carter, but you took him. So I'm going to go Cooper DeJean, just because of the matchup he's going to have on the outside, whether it's Cooper Nakua, Kupp or Nakua in the slot. So I'm going to go Cooper DeJean. And then my bonus one is going to be Jake Elliott. Dude needs to get his head on straight. He left 7 points at least 7 points on the board last week against Washington. You're not going to be able to do that. So nail your field goals, bro. So that's my bonus one, is going to be Jake Elliott. Absolutely. Prediction time.
He needs to get together for sure. He's at the lowest point he's been in his career.
Last week was bad for kickers. Tucker missed a couple. Brandon Aubrey missed one. Like, last week was really tough on kickers.
Field goal. Like, it wasn't
not just Elliott, so that made me feel a little bit better. But I need to see it this week from Jake Elliott. All right, go with your prediction.
It could be Elliott that we need in a playoff game.
Exactly.
Seen it.
Prediction time.
I'm giving the Eagles a win. I kind of preluded to it in our last episode. I did it now. Maybe I'm the guy who's just super low on a Rams team that's better than what I think. But I think they're an average at best team that's going to end up, 9-8, 8-9, depending on where things flow. I mean, I guess things could change a lot in that division, depending on injuries on a given week. But I'm picking the Eagles in this one. And I still think it's going to be a close one, because I think, when you have to make Stafford throw the ball, they're going to put some points up. They're going to be capable of doing it. 27-21 Eagles.
27-21 Eagles. All right. We obviously don't want the Eagles to ever lose a game, but I think that of these next two games, the Rams and the Ravens, the Eagles have to win at least one of them. And I think this one's more important only because it's a conference matchup. And when it comes to the trying to get the number one seed, if you lose this game, I think you kind of lose any leverage that you would have over the Lions if they were to lose a couple and you finish with the same record, because the Lions beat the Rams, if I'm not mistaken. So common opponents, you want to do that. So I think, like, if somebody said you're going to win one of the next two games, which one do you want to win? I probably would pick the Ravens because I'm going to be at the game personally, like for my own selfish reasons. I would want to see the Eagles win in Baltimore. But for potential at a first round bye, or potential at the top seed in the NFC in a first round bye, and if you make it to the NFC Championship game, making Jared Goff play at the Link and not inside in that dome in Detroit, you obviously want to beat the Rams because it's a conference matchup. I'm not calling this a trap game. It's going to be tough. I have it being close. I have it 27-24 Rams. I picked the Rams. I know. I'm giving you a chance. So I'm 7-3 on our prediction so far this year. You're 5-5. So I'm giving you a chance. Obviously, I want the Eagles to win.
But I'm rolling. I'm like the Eagles right now. I'm rolling. I got the last 4 right. But I mean, guess the Eagles have given us a reason. So
you have gotten your last one. You have gotten your last three right because we both picked the Bengals to beat the Eagles. I've gotten the last three right too as well. But yeah, I'm 7-3.
Yeah,
you're 5-5.
Detroit Lions 6-1 against the conference. We're 5-2. Obviously, common opponents comes first. But
it also helps that they have the Packers left. They have the Vikings left. They have the Niners left. I think all those games are at home though, if I'm not mistaken, unless they have to go to San Francisco. I'm not 100% sure. But I mean, it definitely is going to be. We need them to lose at least one more conference game, and we can't really afford to lose another conference game. But the way that the Lions are playing right now, like they're definitely like, in the old BCS era, style points mattered, where if the more points you put up, the better it looked for you. It seems like that's what the Lions are doing right now.
Like they're plus 159 point differential.
Like they're trying to blow teams out on a weekly basis. They don't care. They put up 50.
But that's the Dan Campbell mentality. They're taking kneecaps and they are not looking back. But one of two teams with a plus 100 differential in points, them and the Buffalo Bills.
I was going to guess. I would have probably guessed Buffalo on that. All right. Thank you all for tuning in to this preview edition of the Sunday Night Football matchup between the Eagles and the Rams. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHerrell54 and follow Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. And thanks for all the comments in the comment section. We appreciate everybody tuning in. We will be back Monday with a review of the Eagles and Rams game, and it's going to be a long night, especially for you, Connor, because you're an hour ahead. So
an hour ahead with a 3-week-old.
Yeesh. Hopefully you stay up for the game. It's gonna be.
I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. I think that Thursday night game, I rewatched like some of it the next day because I definitely dozed off at parts. I
don't blame you. I do not blame you. Thank you, Crabby Old Man. Good show, guys. We appreciate you joining us. Please join us for future shows. We're here every Monday and Friday for the most part, here on the Eagles Pinpool Network. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Fly, Eagles, fly.